let's hit up Andrew. Him in Florida. He is a theist and wants to talk about how evolution actually proves that religion and God is true. So, hey, Andrew, you're chatting it up with SR and Forrest. What you got?
Hello.
Hello, SR and Forrest. Yeah.
Hey.
Hi there.
So, yeah, evolution, religion contributed to our survival. If we evolved to become religious and religion dominated, the belief in religion or spirits dominated vast cultures for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years, then that's God's footprint in the natural world, helping us survive due to religion, because these religious beliefs helped us with terror management and survival and unification. And so these experiences and beliefs prove a transcendent reality that helped us survive. So if we evolved to be religious, I'm saying that's proof that a transcendent reality helped us survive and gave us a
I think
tool
I see where you're coming
in
from.
this world, a tool.
I think I see where you're coming from, Andrew. And again, this is Forrest's domain, so I am absolutely going to let him take the bulk of this. I want to say this right at the front, and Forrest, please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but evolution doesn't. Traits that get passed on to offspring don't necessarily benefit the offspring, right? Like, just because a trait gets passed on doesn't mean that it was the best thing for our survival or anything. Like, it's really more a matter of just getting to the point of having kids quicker. Like that silly email that Forrest was reading where the guy was like, you just want people to have as many kids and pass on genes. It's like, so that's why we get cancer when we're older, is because we still pass that stuff on, but we've already procreated at that point, so it doesn't matter. Like, and again, please take it away from here, Forrest.
Yeah, it's what you're talking about there is just population genetics is what's more important than individual genetics, and like, yeah, that's a thing. But like, so Andrew, if I'm understanding what you're saying properly, so I just want to make sure I'm not going to spend 5 minutes explaining something, and you're like, well, that's not at all what I was talking about. So if I'm understanding what you're saying properly, you're saying that for hundreds of thousands of years, potentially, we have had religious belief, and that has been of some sort of benefit to us evolutionarily, probably has an evolutionary implication as to why it's there in the first place, and that is proof of this supernatural realm that has now left an imprint on our evolutionary history and our genesis, for lack of a better word, as a species. Is that what I'm getting from what you're saying?
Yep. Perfect.
Cool. I 100% agree with your premise. I don't at all agree with your where you came from or where you landed after that. So here's where you're thinking. You've got you are right to say that there is sort of an evolutionary impetus to become somewhat religious. Superstition and coming up with weird explanations for the natural world, those do make sense evolutionarily, and there's a few reasons for that. The most common that we talk about is a false positive fear response. If you hear a rustling in the bushes and you assume that it's the wind and it's actually a tiger, you are now lunch, and you're not gonna. It's bad for evolution. If, however, you assume that the rustling is a tiger and run away, but it was actually the wind, it doesn't matter. It's Pascal's wager works in evolution, right? If you assume that there's a tiger there and there isn't, then you're still surviving and you're still having offspring. If you assume there isn't a tiger and there is, you're dead. And so the ability, or I should say the habit of humans assuming there's something there, even when there isn't, is what leads now, evolutionarily, leads to what we have today of like apophenia, of the patternicity that we have. Our ability, or I should say our tendency to find meaning in meaningless data. The reason why we see faces and shapes in clouds, the reasons why we can trace out shapes in the popcorn ceiling, the reason why we tend to have like a deep, meaningful experience when really just we saw a cool bird once, but then we take it as a sign and all this stuff. This pareidolia and apophenia, these ways that we find patterns, that is an evolutionary thing that has helped us survive, and it's a part of the function of our brains. But because that has happened, does not give any credibility to there actually being real magic and real gods out there. We didn't know what lightning was or where it came from. We didn't know what electrons were. We didn't know how air was superheated and clapped back together and made a sound. We didn't understand any of that. We saw bright lights in the sky that caused fires and were very loud and scary. And because everything else like that was caused by a human, we assume there must be somebody out there making that happen. And it's definitely not one of us. Therefore, it must be a god. That's how that happened. It doesn't mean there's actually Thor. It just means that we didn't know what this was and we gave it an agency. The earliest gods, when we look back over the history of religion, and again, I'm not a theologist, so all the theologists out there can please correct me if I'm wrong. But as far as I understand it, the earliest religions were centered around things like the sun, warmth, heat, light, protection, food. Then later on, you get things like hunting and fertility, procreation, sustaining the culture, sustaining our population, our tribe, right? Those were the earliest gods because those were things that mattered to us and things that we didn't have an explanation for the way that they worked. We knew that the deer came in this way and we weren't sure why. So we assumed there was somebody guiding them. We knew the sun came up and then went down. We didn't know why. So we assumed that it was somebody pulling it around or it itself was something with an agency that was doing this on purpose. None of those beliefs are true. They were just our first attempt at explaining the natural world. And because they were our first attempt, they were also our worst attempt. That is the genesis of religion. It makes no sense to say, okay, therefore it must be real, any more than it would make sense for me to say, yes, Quetzalcoatl and Zeus are also real because these ancient people believed in them. That doesn't track. Does it make sense what I'm saying here?
Yeah. The individual it does not prove the individual claims that a religion is real or that the truth claims of those religions are real. I agree.
Or that religion at all is real.
Right.
It's just the first way that we explain the thing.
That's what I mean. Right. It's a way to explain the natural world. And we got it wrong because various religious claims can be falsified in this life. No, I agree with that. So I guess my counterpoint would be it's not that the claim that doesn't prove the claims. It proves the validity of the religious experience, and it proves the existence of a transcendent reality because we seem to still be drawn to a transcendent reality. We still seem to be drawn.
But how does that prove that it exists, though, Andrew?
Build that bridge for me.
Yeah,
how does
so like let's just Forrest and I will just take this statement, okay? Like we won't push back on this, okay? How about this? It seems people are drawn to the transcendent. Sure, totally cool. Absolutely. How does that get us to actually confirming the truth of it, though? The existence of that thing?
It confirms the existence of a thing, of something.
How?
It confirms the existence of
How
something.
does it do that? Because they're contradictory to each other. You use the same methodology to get contradictory results consistently. So how does that prove anything at all?
Yeah, it keeps demonstrating. We keep thinking that there's something there, even if we don't know what it is. We keep continuing to be drawn to it. We keep trying to name it. We keep trying to.
And why does that experience with humans lead you to believe that the thing is in existence, though? Why do you actually believe that just because that is a condition that seemingly does exist right now worldwide throughout history, why does that lead you to say, therefore, it has to be in existence in some capacity? What is the step there? What is the connection?
Right. The connection that I attempted to make was that it brought about our survival, and we just don't have the tools yet to name it or to identify it. We're not advanced in science enough to determine it, but it's got to be a transcendent reality because we continue to just believe in it, even without reason.
Hang on,
Andrew. Hold on a second.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I don't mean to keep cutting you off here, but like you just said two things that make no sense.
Right.
I want to try. So you were asked, why does us believing in something confirm to you that that thing actually exists? And your two answers were, because it helped in our survival, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't matter whether or not it helped in our survival. It matters whether or not it's true. There are lots of things that help in our survival that don't, it doesn't connect to anything in reality. And then the second thing you said is that we keep believing in it and keep trying to name it. Yes, humans keep being ignorant of the natural world because they have to grow up. We have to learn things. There's a reason why not everybody studies the same kind of science. I'm not a physicist. I don't know a bunch of shit about the universe out there. But if that's my lot in life. I'm a biologist instead. And there's lots of people who don't study any of this stuff, that don't have any background in it. So like, just because you believe something doesn't mean that it's real. Just because lots of people believe something doesn't mean that it's real. And when you're saying we don't have the tools to name it yet or to quantify it yet, we don't have the tools to detect it. We don't have any indication that anything like what you're talking about is real at all. And you're sitting here saying, yeah, but people believe it, so therefore it must be real. And like, why do you believe in dragons? Lots of cultures had dragon beliefs. Why don't you believe in those? What about ghosts? Lots of cultures believed in ghosts. Lots of cultures believed in lots of things that you probably don't believe in. Leprechauns, brownies, lots of cultures have ideas about little tiny humans that do mischievous or helpful things around us. Do you believe in them? Why not? Like, just because a lot of people believe a thing doesn't mean that thing is true at all or has any reason for you to believe in it. You're talking about a very early, very wrong belief, and then pretending like the fact that it's a thing gives it validity. And I don't understand why you would do that.
Yeah.
I see. I guess my last ditch effort. We keep detecting something.
What?
Even though we have no proof of it, we keep detecting something. And I'm just saying that maybe there's got to be something there. Because what are we
detecting? That's the point of what Forrest was just saying.
Something.
What are we detecting?
Yeah.
And if at the end of the day, we have the exact same detection method that seems to pick up something, but it never seems to actually work with itself. There's all these contradictory experiences, and there are an incredible amount of other things in life that exactly fit this criteria, just like Forrest mentioned, that you absolutely reject. You don't think there's little elves running around fixing your sandwiches and keeping your refrigerator going, but
I hope not.
That fits the criteria about this transcendent stuff. So what is the differentiation there for you? Why do you say in this instance that it does positively confirm something?
I'm saying it's undetectable, and I'm sorry. I don't want to not answer you. The question was what again?
Why
do I keep,
when using this criteria that you have laid out for us about the transcendent, why do you not accept the other instances like Forrest just mentioned, right? Little elves or roll in the closet goblin. That's always a favorite around here. Like that. Those instances fit this exact criteria that you're saying about the transcendent. Why, if that's the case, do you only accept one and not the others? They seem to be completely in line with each other.
Having the experience, yes, but they're falsified. The other ones are falsifiable. You can falsify elves.
How do you falsify elves that they don't have any mass, they don't have any weight, they're spirits? How do you falsify that? What's the falsification criteria? It's the same thing as the transcendent.
I don't know too much about the mythology of elves, but I mean nobody believes in elves nowadays. It's been falsified.
But they do. But yes, they do. And it fits the criteria.
There are still people that believe in little things. Yes,
people
there absolutely
do.
are.
Yes.
I've met them.
Yes. And again, ghosts. That is definitely another one that just outright seemingly lines up perfectly with the bullet points that you've laid out for the transcendent. But you don't seem to accept that. I mean, I don't know. Do you? Like, do you believe ghosts are a thing?
No, I don't believe ghosts. Like
me either.
Dead spirits of people. But I believe there's something.
But Andrew, you have to understand, lots of cultures all over the world for millennia have believed in spirits and ghosts.
And they've got experience.
And they said that they were experiencing it and detecting it. So why don't you believe in that?
They're putting words into something that we can't measure, we can't see, we can't find it. So why? So putting words
why would you believe in it,
So
right?
why would you believe in it? That's a great question. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's undetectable
humans are
by your
programmed.
own admission, if you're saying flat out, it's not, you can't detect it. It doesn't have mass. You can't, hold it in your hand and stuff. Why would you believe that it's real then?
Because the one evidence we do have is, even though it's undetectable, even though it's not falsifiable, we're programmed to believe in it, period, whatever name we put to it. And so because
No,
we're
we're not.
programmed,
Disagree.
something has programmed us to do it.
No,
we're
I just
not.
totally disagree. I don't think we're programmed. I think that's a term that people use because in a colloquial sense, I think people want that to be the case a lot of times, but there is no demonstration that anything whatsoever has ever been put together by some transcendent being. There's no demonstration of that. And like I was saying earlier, when you said, well, we falsified little elves, we falsified ghosts. How? They are specifically in the same vein as things like the transcendent and the afterlife and deities and reincarnation. These are concepts that, kind of like what you just said, people are not really sure what the hell it is, but they're trying to fit some words together. But the issue with that is there's still nothing there at the center. And because that's the case, when you say to me, but we falsified elves, SR, I say, well, no, we haven't, because see, these elves are so light that they don't make an imprint in the carpet. And you go, well, that's fine. We just put a bunch of dust everywhere and then we could see their little feetsy prints. But no, see, you don't understand, because they have special shoes that powder doesn't apply to it. It doesn't adhere. That's what we're saying, is that this category that you have laid out for us of something that is real, is actually in existence, by your own admission, doesn't seem to hit the criteria that you require for everything else in life. And then when you come back to me and say, these other instances that match up perfectly with this one that I'm laying out, those aren't real because they're falsified. But in reality, we can just play this game all day. I mean, we're not going to, but we could just play this game all day where you say, well, the transcendent is more of like it's not really like a place. It's like a thing, and you're like, okay, well, I don't know what that means. So we can't go to the transcendent, but we can feel the transcendent. Like it just doesn't seem like there's anything there at the center of this concept. And that's just problematic. And especially when you're using the exact same methodology and you're just completely disagreeing with it in other scenarios, again, that seemingly match up perfectly. I don't see anything disanalogous about what Forrest was saying when it came to ghosts and elves and dragons. I just don't. We'll let you get one last thought in here, Andrew, and then we're going to go because we got a couple of other really cool calls. But yeah, I mean, I guess just at the end of the day, like, if you could just give it to us one final time, Andrew, what is that real hardcore strong reason you think the transcendent is real? What is that for us?
I tried. I don't want to repeat myself. I don't want to argue.
That's fine.
Thanks for your guys' time.
That's fair.
So,
yeah, no, we appreciate it. We appreciate it, Andrew, and give us a call back in the future. I don't think that was a bad call. I just think we found ourselves in a place where, like, Andrew just wasn't, we weren't making progress. It didn't feel like we were getting a back and forth.
The last thing you said also was so frustrating, to say that we are programmed to believe these things. Like, that's demonstrably false. And like, that's even if we had some evolutionary thing in us that made us believe specifically that thing, and not just like what I talked about with epiphania, pareidolia, like the ways that we find patterns, things like that happen to manifest in these ways a lot of times, but don't always. If we really were all pre-programmed, for lack of a better word, to find this, then why is everybody's account different? Why are all these cultures having different answers?
Yes,
coming up with
exactly.
completely different experiences, completely different idea, and like, oh yeah, we can't detect it. Okay, then how do you know it's a thing? Like, what and you touched on this, and that's really the biggest frustration I have, is like, one of my favorite questions to ask in these situations is, would you use this exact same line of thinking for absolutely anything else? Would you say, here's a thing that we can't detect, we have no way of measuring, but I heard a lot of people believe in it, therefore it's true. And we hit several of those. We talked about dragons, talked about elves, talked about this, that, and the other. And he was very happy to be like, no, of course not. So the next question then, okay, how many people need to believe in dragons for you to believe in dragons?
Yeah.
Is there a number?
Right,
or is
right.
it just, this is either true or it isn't? And if
Right.
you can't detect it, then there's no reason to believe in it. And he himself said, I can't detect it, so there's no reason for me to believe in it. Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Put
Yeah.
that same thought into what you're doing now. Like, it's just, it's so frustrating when you hit this, Andrew, if you're listening to this, please go look up the bandwagon fallacy. And then also just apply the exact same line of thinking that you apply to dragons and pixies and ghosts and everything else to whatever the fuck it is you were talking about there, and see what comes out the other side. And if it doesn't make any sense, guess what? It's because it didn't make any sense to begin with.
That's
I
a
hope that
really,
helps.
I agree. That's probably a really good indication that it
Yeah.
didn't make sense to begin with.